Imagine this. You are walking through a forest when suddenly you hear a loud whoop. Frantically, you look around, trying to see whatever made that loud, unexpected sound. Then you hear loud footsteps, snapping twigs beneath their feet, and what sounds like limbs being knocked out of trees. Whatever it is getting closer. Then you manage to see it through a small clearing in the leaves. A 7-foot tall humanoid creature, covered in thick reddish-brown hair. Its gait lumbering, swinging its arms to its side. You go to get your phone out to take a picture, but as soon as you do, the creature is gone, back into the forest where it lives. That is the common depiction of Sasquatch, and stories which have been passed down for generations and continue to be made today. Despite this, no videos or images have been captured that definitively prove the existence of a Sasquatch, and no proof has ever surfaced that any species of great ape has ever lived in North America, where a majority of sightings come from. So what's the deal? Primary theory as to what Sasquatch is as follows. Ancestors of Gigantopithecus blacki avoided their extinction and traveled across the Bering Land Bridge from Asia and into North America alongside early humans. These ancestors that survived the extinction of a majority of their species would have evolved bipedalism, a plantigrade foot, a humanoid face, and extreme intelligence to avoid human contact and evade detection. Many suspect that Sasquatch has some form of communication or language, and are mostly solitary, except for when they see a partner, and sometimes a child. Now, there are some glaring flaws in this argument. Gigantopithecus went extinct approximately 250,000 years ago, a substantial amount of time for us to have no records of its existence. Furthermore, we have no proof that any great apes lived in North America, let alone coming from Asia. On top of that, all the fossils we have of Gigantopithecus are from southern China, extremely far from the Bering Land Bridge to begin with. Now, lack of evidence isn't proof of non-existence. But with such glaring issues, it raises big red flags as to its validity. Gigantopithecus was also a cave dweller, not a forest creature that would be able to completely rechange its biology in that short amount of time. They weren't plantigrade, which means they didn't walk with their full feet, which is what modern Sasquatch tracks clearly depict. And even if they were plantigrade, they had an opposable toe that would appear as a thumb in their tracks, but modern Sasquatch tracks look humanoid. Gigantopithecus was also wide and heavy, with flanky arms, which, although that fits some depictions of Sasquatch, its sheer weight would have likely prevented true bipedalism, which this theory heavily relies on to function as intended. There's also the issue of nature. Although Gigantopithecus and other great apes are generally solitary, they still engage in a lot of social behaviors, including grooming. Sasquatch is well known for its strong, pungent odor, which is not a signature of primates, which are well known to actually smell good due to their high grooming standards. That's not even including basic physiology, such as the fact most female Sasquatch being depicted as having large breasts, or Sasquatch being depicted with a humanoid face, neither of which Gigantopithecus had, and would be extremely difficult to rapidly evolve in 250,000 years, as it took us millions of years to evolve the same. Although there are huge flaws with the giant ape theory, I still do believe that Sasquatch is real. Cultures across North and South America have depictions of wild men, which are Sasquatch-esque creatures, and although other continents have it as well, the depictions in North and South America are compelling due to the specificity and how far they go with it. In North America, there are stories of the Wendigo, a humanoid beast which is described larger than humans, which had white skin and was in constant famine, attacking and eating humans to satisfy its never-ending hunger. In South America, there are stories of the Mapingari, a humanoid beast which is described as larger than humans, which had brown fur and was in constant famine, attacking humans and having a mouth on its stomach, causing its never-ending hunger. There are countless other stories with extremely similar ideas, near exclusive to the American continent. But looking at these two stories, you can see an eerie similarity, but you should also be seeing two major differences. In the South American tale, the Mapingari has a mouth in its stomach, something that the Wendigo lacks. I've chopped this up to creative interpretation, as there are no known animals that have such mouth. But perhaps more glaringly, The Wendigo is described as having white skin and being in constant famine, while the Mapingari is described as large and having brown fur. So why the difference? Well, I have an explanation, but first we need to get into sightings of Sasquatch can be divided into four main regions: Western North America, Southern North America, Northern North America, and Amazonian South America. Sightings from Western North America match closely with the generic Sasquatch sightings, being described as 7 to 8 feet tall, large and barrel-chested, bipedal and slow-moving, exclusive to dense forests and mountains of that area, and is mostly peaceful, primarily herbivorous. Contrasting that with Southern North America, where sightings tend to be smaller, at between 6 to 7 feet tall, and being slimmer and more agile. They are pretty much exclusive to the swamps and marshes and the creeks of that region, which are often described as more aggressive and carnivorous. In Northern North America, there are stories like the Wendigo. They generally describe a large humanoid creature with sparse hair, often malnourished, and highly aggressive and carnivorous. And then in Amazonia and South America, there are stories such as the Mapingari, which depict an aggressive but solitary creature native to the Amazon, which is large and humanoid. Interestingly, folklorists and scientists both agree as to what the Mapingari and similar beasts in South America are: cultural memory of a giant ground sloth which coexisted with early humans in the area. But could that be applied to the sightings of North America? I believe so. If we look at the regions, we can see that the depictions of the southern North American Sasquatch is eerily similar to the depictions of those in the Amazon, which align closely with geography, where the swamps and marshes of southern United States is similar to the Amazon, with a similar ecosystem. Interesting as well is that in the southern United States, such as Florida, fossil giant ground sloths have recently been found, showing that they existed farther north than previously suspected, and lived much more recently than previously known. As we get to the west, we get a larger, more docile species, which aligns with Bergman's rule, which states that animals become larger as they enter a colder environment, in turn also moving slower to preserve calories in the winter. But why more passive? Well, there is less competition. In the swamplands and rainforests, there are high competition, which leads to aggression to secure food. And as we go north, we see the aggression again, and we see a loss of hair, but also less stories. This could be because of small species that goes up north, and when they get caught in the weather, they starve, and they grow malnourished, and they lose their fur and become more and more aggressive. Now, 5,000 years isn't a lot of times to evolve traits such as hyperintelligence, a humanoid gait, or a humanoid face, but they don't need to. Giant ground sloths were solitary and were theorized to be hypersensitive to smell, and so a human, which has been known to hunt them, comes near them, a flight response isn't outrageous. They were also known to stand on their hind legs when foraging or when they feel threatened, and could likely walk a few steps, and this feeds into confirmation bias. If you go to a zoo and watch a monkey, they will generally be docile and just sit around, maybe climb a few things. But if you ask someone what they saw while watching a monkey, they will comment about how they swung around. This is because popular media depicts it that way. And so your brain latches on to what confirms your preconceived beliefs. Because of that confirmation bias, any bipedal steps is automatically seen as humanoid, because we have long been conditioned to believe them as bipedal. A similar thing exists with the humanoid face, except this is mostly due to the fact that sloth physiology already looks close to a humanoid face, assisting our brains in categorizing it as human. They were also plantigrade, and their feet had giant claws which look eerily similar to a human's footprints, as you can see. It is not outrageous to assume that a majority of the bad or low quality casts reported are actually giant ground sloth, especially given a majority of good or high quality casts are suspected to be fakes. They were also known to be in both South and North America relatively recently, with new bones constantly being found that point to a timeline that extends closer and closer to the modern era. This gets compounded by the fact that giant ground sloths, and by extension what is likely Sasquatch, live in areas prone to rapid decomposition in the southeast and Amazon, and sightings of Sasquatch in the West often occur in protected regions that prevent digs or full investigations. Giant ground sloths also had a high odor and had fur that closely reflects the Sasquatch of today. This is coupled with the fact that regular zoologists and folklorists believe that sightings of things such as the Mapingari in South America are due to stories of giant ground sloths that overlapped with early humans in the region. With the similarity of Mapingari to the Sasquatch and the continued sightings of the Mapingari and the Sasquatch, it reasons believe that it is a giant ground sloth. In conclusion, I believe the Sasquatch is real, but furthermore, I believe it is a giant ground sloth. The giant ape theory has glaring issues, from the time frame to the lack of evidence, to the basic physiology to the behavior present in the Sasquatch. All of those things line up closer with the giant ground sloth, a species which is known to have existed with early humans, in which has been attributed by zoologists and folklorists for select sightings of a Sasquatch-like creature. It's important to question the world around us and to question everything we can, and I believe that it applies to everything. But that also requires cross-reference and being able to be falsifiable. Is the giant ground sloth theory falsifiable? Yes. If we capture footage of the Sasquatch and it is humanoid or ape-like, or if it's a known species like a bear, we can determine that it is false. Is the giant ape theory falsifiable? Yes, but not really. Any information to disprove it will just be said it is an outlier, or that the Sasquatch itself is an outlier. And it's because of that I submit to the giant ground sloth theory. Sincerely, a concerned skeptic.